The Chaos Gods are not rulers of the warp, they never were. And the greatest misconception in Warhammer 40,000 is believing that chaos is free. Every piece of imperial dogma, every chaos sermon, every demonic whisper repeats the same assumption, that the warp belongs to its gods, that it bends to their will, that Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh are sovereign powers reigning over an infinite realm. But the evidence does not support a throne. The evidence supports a cage. Because true gods do not need permission to act. The Chaos Gods do. True gods do not rely on breaches, rituals, sacrifices, psychic cataclysms, and galaxy-spanning wars just to touch reality. The Chaos Gods cannot simply arrive. They seep, they leak, they press, they corrode, they behave not like conquerors, but like pressure trapped behind a wall. And walls exist for a reason. The warp is not Chaos's kingdom. It is Chaos's containment zone. The Chaos Gods are not kings. They are inmates. To understand this, you have to abandon the idea that the warp was always what it is now. In the earliest eras of the galaxy, the warp was calm, not empty, but navigable, stable enough that the old ones crossed it effortlessly, shaped it, treated it as an extension of real space. Their psychic mastery didn't provoke gods. It didn't spawn daemons. The warp responded, yes, but it did not scream. That only changed when emotion stopped flowing and began accumulating. When sentient life became numerous. When suffering reached industrial scales. When war ceased being episodic and became constant. The warp didn't create chaos instantly. It saturated first. Emotion built up like heat in a sealed system. And every sealed system eventually fails. But what if it didn't fail completely? What if instead of exploding, the warp was partitioned, localized, pressure managed? What if the Chaos Gods are not spontaneous deities, but stabilized psychic disasters? Not entities born to rule, but forces frozen into shape to stop something worse from happening? Each Chaos God aligns perfectly with a singular destructive excess. Khorne is violence without context. Nurgle is entropy without end. Slaanesh is desire without limit. Tzeentch is possibility without resolution. These are not personalities. They are containment archetypes. They are psychic sinks, designed to pull infinite emotional overflow into finite, manageable forms. Not creative, not flexible, not evolving. That is why the Chaos Gods never change. They never grow wiser. They never adapt strategically the way living minds do. Khorne does not discover new expressions of conflict. He repeats. Nurgle does not innovate decay. He cycles. Tzeentch's schemes never conclude. Slaanesh's indulgence never satisfies. This is not godhood. This is recursion. The Chaos Gods are loops, so powerful the galaxy mistakes them for consciousness. And this also explains why the warp is so hostile now. Not because chaos rules it, but because the containment is overloaded. Every war feeds Khorne, but not because Khorne wants victory. Victory ends wars. Ended wars would starve the system. Khorne does not seek an end state. He seeks continuation, endless battle, perpetual bloodshed, conflict without resolution, because Khorne's function is not conquest, it is absorption. Nurgle does not desire universal death. Death without renewal would silence despair. He cultivates cycles of decay and rebirth, because despair must persist. Slaanesh does not want extinction through excess. Extinction ends sensation. She sustains addiction, not climax. Tzeentch ensures futures never settle, because fixed fate halts emotional output. This is not ambition. This is regulation. Which brings us to the Emperor, and why chaos truly feared him. The Emperor did not merely oppose chaos militarily. He threatened its operating conditions. A rational, secular, humanity-dominant galaxy. A species unified under order, not faith, not superstition, not emotional extremes. Psychic discipline, controlled warp access, webway reliance rather than warp dependence. The Emperor wasn't closing doors. He was closing valves. And if the valves close, pressure builds inward, not outward. This reframes the Horus heresy entirely. Chaos did not strike because humanity was about to defeat it. Chaos struck because humanity was about to become stable. A stable galaxy is catastrophic to a containment-based system. Emotional equilibrium is more dangerous to the warp than extermination. That is why chaos corrupts rather than annihilates. That is why demons tempt rather than eradicate. That is why chaos worship always encourages emotional extremity. Never peace. Never moderation. Never silence. Silence is death. Look at beings that understand this instinctively. The Necrons do not fight chaos emotionally. They impose null fields. They remove psychic interaction entirely. Not attack the gods. Ignore them. Tyranids do not feed chaos. They do not empower warp entities. They consume biomass without hope, fear, or ambition. Blanks terrify daemons because they don't resist. They erase the medium. These factions behave like engineers facing a dangerous reactor. You don't fight radiation. You contain it, or starve it. Now consider Slaanesh's birth. A psychic detonation so massive it punched a permanent scar in reality. But what happened afterward? The warp didn't become more chaotic indefinitely. It stabilized around Slaanesh. She became a focal point for excess. The Eye of Terror formed, but the galaxy didn't dissolve. This suggests a horrifying truth. The Son system worked. Slaanesh's emergence prevented something even worse from spreading uncontained. What if the Chaos Gods were never meant to be for forever? What if they are emergency structures added as needed when emotional load exceeds tolerances? What if earlier epochs required fewer? What if future catastrophes could birth others? Not because chaos grows, but because containment fails and adapts mechanically, not intelligently. This explains why chaos feels simultaneously ancient and stagnant, why its gods feel eternal, but their stories repeat, why warp storms fluctuate but never resolve. The warp is not a realm of freedom, it is a pressure vessel, and the chaos gods are pressure locks. And here lies the ultimate terror. Not that the chaos gods might win, but that one might fail. If a chaos god truly dies, not banished, not weakened, but erased, the emotional spectrum it contained would not disappear. It would disperse, unfiltered, raw, rage, without symbol, despair without cycles, desire without form, probability without narrative. The warp would stop speaking in gods and start screaming as noise. That is why daemons fear true annihilation. That is why chaos resurrects itself endlessly. That is why even the ruinous powers avoid total commitment. They are not protecting themselves. They are protecting the wall they are fused into. The chaos gods are not the apocalypse. They are the warning systems. Their roars are pressure alarms. The Long War is not a conquest. It is stress management. And the galaxy keeps misunderstanding the stakes, believing chaos is an enemy to be destroyed, not a catastrophe to be survived. The Imperium sacrifices billions to keep the system running. Cultists unknowingly stabilize psychic flows by feeding predictable patterns. Empires rise and fall, but equilibrium persists. Not peace, equilibrium. And that is the cruel genius of the warp. Chaos is not evil because it wants to destroy reality. Chaos is evil because it needs reality alive, burning, and broken forever. If the galaxy ever truly heals, if emotion calms, if faith fades, if war ends, if silence returns, then the walls won't leak anymore. They will burst. There is one last truth hidden beneath all of this. If the chaos gods are prisons, then something chose what they would contain. And that means the warp didn't accidentally become hell. It was engineered into one, because uncontained infinity is worse. And somewhere beneath the screaming gods, beneath the daemons, beneath the storms and scars and tides of madness, is the thing the system was built to stop. Chaos doesn't whisper damnation. It screams containment failure.